Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. Welcome back to the TED Show. Excited to have Melvin Negron on the show with us. I read a little bit of his bio. He comes from Margie Santos. Shout out to Margie. Gang life to God life. I just cannot wait to hear the journey and the story and the testimony because I know you have one, my friend. Welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
It's an honor. Thank you for being patient. You got to love technology in our world and challenges on my end, but you obviously have patience, which is great. You're CEO of Gangsters Gone Godly. How can you not love that name? There's so much about that. And I want to hear all about it. But before we do, I told you before we went live that the audience loves to know about you, your origin story, which is obviously part of the bigger picture and your testimony. So let's start. Tell us about you, Melvin.
Well, again, my name is Melvin Negron. I was born in Vineland, New Jersey, born and raised out here. Came from a single mother, that struggled to try and give me the best she could, worked very hard, for so much that she wasn't at home a lot. We were left with at the house with her boyfriend. But prior to that, for the first 5 years of my life, I actually lived in the hospital, in and out the hospital. I was born premature, and I wasn't, how could you say, I was fighting for my life for the first 5 years, basically. When I came out my mother's womb, there was paperwork had to be signed. We're talking back in the 70s where, the medical world wasn't as it is today. So they had to choose whether to save my mother's life or to save mine. And of course, my grandparents chose their daughter because they didn't know me yet.
Right.
But I came out, her umbilical cord around my throat. Like I said, I was premature, so I hadn't fully developed my hands were still fist up, my feet, everything. So my lungs weren't developed. I couldn't, I literally had to grow up inside the hospital at Thomas Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia for the first 5 years. I came home.
So that must have been so hard for a young kid to understand and deal with.
You know what? What's amazing about it is, like, I guess because since I was born there and pretty much raised there, the nurses and doctors treated me like as if I was their child. 24 hours a day, like to the point when I finally was able to come home. People were crying. Like, from what I can remember, it was like that's all I knew. Wow. So it was fun. I didn't know anything else. I thought that was normal. I would see my mom, pretty much my sister and my siblings, they would come and go, but I thought that was normal life. I didn't know what it was to be. I was a baby, but I came home, and when I came home, I actually wish I had stayed in the hospital. I came home to abuse, craziness in the house. My mom's boyfriend, being abusive towards her, being abusive towards myself and my sister. I had other siblings, but they lived with my father. So I really came into chaos. And
what was that like, going from the hospital to a new, like, just not only a new home, but now you're in a home where there's stress and there's violence. I can't, and as a 5-year-old, that must have been very hard to figure out and process.
Yeah, honestly, I wanted to go back to the hospital. I wanted to, every chance that I could get to, say, I was having problems with my leg or problems with my lungs, you know, I guess they were excuses just to go back because I didn't like it. I was scared. I was, terrified. Something a kid shouldn't feel, in his own home. Um, and like I said, the violence, watching the abuse that he did towards my mother. Um, like I seen this, lady that's 5 foot tall being abused by a man almost 6 feet tall, getting punched on and stuff like that. So it was really like a whole different world because in the hospital, all I seen was love.
Yes.
Love, caring, taken care of. Even when my mother would come to visit me, I was like sheltered from what was actually going on at the house because when she would come there, he would never come. So she was more comfortable, more at ease. Uh, so I didn't know what to expect.
It just I think the I grew up in a violent household.
Mhm.
So I think that you just can't believe that's going on. And it changes you, right? It impacts you.
Mhm.
So somehow that must have impacted you in a negative way,
Oh yeah.
because we obviously are talking about gang life in the beginning.
Yeah.
So what was that? When did you become involved in gangs? Was it because the neighborhood it was easily accessible? Was it a combination of the fact that you grew up in an environment where that was the norm? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, in reality, like when I came home, my mom pretty much tried to protect us as much as she could, and so that we wouldn't go outside. We were really I was a homebody. I didn't really know the streets like that, but I started getting attracted to the streets probably around the age of 9 or 10, just because I didn't want to be inside the house.
Sure.
So I would see the guys on the corner that were hustling and selling drugs and had the nice cars, the jewelry, the girls all around them, looking like they were having fun. Um, and they would see me when I would go to the bodega and on the corner, and they would see me and they'd be like, "Yo, little man, here's $20. Go get me a soda. Keep the change." That was exciting to me.
Sure. Yeah, it was attractive and it wasn't at that point violent.
No, and then so I basically got adopted by the guys on the streets, and they asked me. They could see this stuff was going on in my house, so they kind of like said, put it in my head, we could take care of this for you and go after him. So at the age of 11, I went ahead and me and a couple other guys from the corner, ended up jumping my mom's boyfriend, breaking into his house and beating him up pretty bad, to the point where I ended up getting locked up that day. And I ended up doing about 2.5 years in juvenile state prison here in Jersey.
Wow.
And I guess basically that's how it started. Now, see, we had little cliques here in Vineland, projects, different neighborhoods, but nothing on a scale of like, real gangs, or large gangs, let's say. So when I got locked up, I'm now put in an environment where there's kids from Newark, from Patterson, all these major cities where those gangs existed, and I met a couple Latin Kings, and
Wow.
that's pretty much how I ended up getting introduced to the Latin Kings. So by the age of 14, I became what they called a Pee Wee King. Um, and I got basically jumped into the gang. Um, it was pretty bad, but I was so used to getting beat at home that when getting jumped in was like second nature, you know, and anger had set in already, I was angry about everything. you know.
Could you
So
not be? The wonderful thing is that you had your first 5 years were relatively peaceful from that perspective. But other than that, once you got out, you had nothing but trauma and stress and violence.
right, right, and that started a roller coaster ride through my teenage years of in and out of jails, different juvenile facilities, DIFUS, children's services out here, getting put into foster homes every time I got released, um, things like that. And I was now, because I was a Latin King or Pee Wee King, I was I wanted to be more. I wanted to be something big. I wanted to be feared. I wanted to be, powerful. I wanted everything that the streets so supposedly offered you: money, power, and respect. I wanted all that. So now my idols became, Scarface. We're talking about in the 80s. Um, you know, Guys like that. I wanted that, and being a Latin King was my way of getting it, because they were the second largest gang in the world. It's not, we were in a community, we were in a neighborhood, but in reality, Latin Kings were known everywhere, So I had a goal now, you could say.
Did you while you're in it, I'm always fascinated by, I understand how it happens. I do, because any of us, if I had been around that or been to, it could have happened to me. Like, violence begets violence. So
Mm-hmm.
it's something that could happen.
Right.
Are you feeling, when you're in it, even as you're getting, and you want to achieve those things, are you remembering the 5-year-old before? Are you remembering that? Or are you so consumed with anger and hate and any negative emotion I could probably think of? Is there remorse? At that moment, is there remorse? Is there feeling? Do you let yourself go there? Can you let yourself go there? What's that like?
Um, Actually, no, I didn't have any remorse. I didn't have any, I basically blocked out anything that was good in my life, any good childhood memories. Um, Everything always seemed like, no matter what I thought about, it was like, even if it looks like it started off good, the day ended bad, you know. So having that mindset, it just made me more angry. Um, and it wasn't just anger towards, my mom's boyfriend. It became angry at everything in life. Like, my sister and family members, they would have pictures, or back then, camcorders that had videos, and I never smiled. You can't find any pictures with me smiling. Now, before that, baby pictures, you'll see me like a happy little kid, but as I got older, none of that. And then, by the time I was 18, all you seen any pictures were prison pictures, prison poses, kneeling down on one leg, throwing up gang signs, standing up against the wall, throwing up gang signs, having to make that face, even when I wasn't angry, because I was around other Latin Kings and we were, basically celebrating, we're taking a picture, but, had to mean mug everybody, had to have that, I guess, persona that I was this tough guy. But
Can't let your guard down because you're in the gang, and there is a whole gang life, which you refer to in the title. There's a code. There's things that we who haven't been in a gang don't understand, but that's just part of your way of life and the way that you lived every day.
right, right, and that was the thing. It wasn't even just against, like, uh, the opposition. It was actually even within the gang. Like, I had to show authority, um, against, guys that I said that I was willing to die for. They were willing to die for me, because if they sensed any type of weakness, or soft, as they say on the streets, then they would, run over you. They would take your position. And I immediately, at the age of 18, became a leader of the Latin Kings, was crowned as a full blown Latin King, no longer a Pee Wee King,
Wow.
through the Lion Tribe out of the Bronx, New York. And now I'm a leader for what they call the First Crown, and there were guys in there 20 years and were underneath of me, you know.
Wow. So
So
there's a hierarchy.
yeah, there's five
What is
positions.
that? What does that look like? Like for those of us who've only experienced gangs on a show, like we think we know. And I know that it is probably a million times worse than the shows portray. What's life like for you? Are you in and out of jail all the time? Is there a lot of carnage, whatever that looks like? And that could be a million different things that are carnage. But is your life just are you constantly battling?
Yeah, well, from the age of 11 to my early 40s, I spent 28 years of my life inside prison.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. So more than 2/3 of my life was in and out of prison. Never a straight whole 28 years, but 5 years here, 10 years here, different sentences like that. But if I said I was on the streets for more than a year, it would probably was once out of those 28 years. I was always in and out. I was a better convict than I was a drug dealer or anything else in my life. Um,
How,
and
what was it when you go into jail? There's Latin Kings in jail as well, correct?
Mhm,
In jail. So in that instance, is it better to be? I'm curious, probably a
mhm.
silly, crazy question for somebody who's never been involved in that. Is it better to be in or out?
It's better to be affiliated with something. Latin Kings was back then the majority, but inside the New Jersey state prisons, especially, it's always by race. So there were two Latin race gangs, the Latin Kings and the Nietas. Then you had your Muslims or 5%ers for the African Americans. Then you had, of course, your Aryan Nation. Um, so everything was kind of a little bit segregated, but everyone knew their place. Like every gang ran a certain part of the jail, from drugs to, um, you know, any type of contraband, anything like that, even to be able to use the phone, you know, somebody ran it, so.
It's amazing because as you're speaking, I'm thinking again, being naive, thinking of the shows that I've seen where gang life is portrayed and jail life is portrayed, and it just sounds like you described exactly that. I'm sure they sugarcoated it on TV. You're in it, so you're in the throes of it. So you're in the gang life. You've been in the gang life, in and out of 28 years. That's an unbelievable number to me. How do you? Where's the conversion to God life? What happened? Obviously, it's usually something happened, or in your case, was it a long list of things that happened?
Well, it started off as like I always like to say, my road to Damascus. Um, I was the true definition of a prisoner, gang member, everything. God was my enemy. God was everything I wasn't. Like I was given the Art of War book at an early age, and I literally took God as the enemy and tried to portray everything like that. In 2007, my baby brother passed away, Kevin, from the streets from addiction. So Kevin idolized everything I did. He wanted to be just like me. He always would talk about, the life that I lived. He even got into arguments with police officers and, yo, you know who my brother is? You know who this and that? Just truly thought I was the best thing in the world. So when he died, it kind of broke me. It kind of made me feel like, man, I'm not the brother that I should have been towards him. I loved him, I wanted to protect him. I wanted him to be, a good kid baseball player. but I showed him nothing but negative stuff. So in 2008, a year later, I decided I was going to go ahead and do what they call walk the golden gates with the Latin Kings. So I asked permission to walk away. I had to write a letter to the Suprema with the very top of the food chain, you could say, for the Latin Kings, asking for permission to walk out with no one getting hurt, no repercussions or anything. So if it wasn't for King Blaze was like my godfather. He was also the second in command, basically, for the Latin Kings in the state of New York under King Blood. Like these names that I'm throwing out, I have permission today. Had I done this, prior to 2008, I could never say these names. I could never even tell this story, but he basically went ahead and gave the permission and the authority for me to walk away because he actually believed there was something greater about me. King Blaze ended up passing away, may he rest in peace, but he was a political prisoner. Like he did blogs from inside the federal prison, all this stuff. And he's seen, I guess, what he's seen in me, he thought was going to go in that direction, not realizing that God had a different plan for me, So in 2008, like I said, I walked what they called the Golden Gates. Basically, I had to get a beat down to get out. In that process, I got 5 broken ribs, a collapsed lung, really beat down, you could say. But it was worth it because no one in my family could ever be they could never come after them. They could never come after me. And in fact, what I do today is I literally go back into the gangs and speak to, the gang members to try and get them out. And for the ones that are only joined because they were scared or whatever, I have what they call this so-called stain and respect with the gangs that because of the way I went out, they respect me to not come after me to do those things.
I was going to say that must be, I would immediately think that they would despise you and not want you to come in and try to find any way to circumvent you preaching your message and giving your testimony.
Well, the thing is, it's amazing, and this is how God works. I have more respect today as a man of God and a former Latin King than I did when I believe I was in the gang, because when I was in the gang, I had to look over my shoulder, like I said, by even my own so-called peers and brothers. A lot of my prison time was because of other Latin Kings that testified against me and sent me to prison. But today I go around the country and I go to the worst cities, the worst hoods in the city, and speak the gospel to them. I don't force nothing on anybody. I just let them know, look, if God can accept me, trust me, there's nothing you could say or whatever sin you believe that you did that he's not going to accept. I broke every 10 commandment 10 times over, so I have that respect, and not just from the Latin Kings. I deal with Bloods, Crips, MS-13s. I wrote a book with 4 other guys that we all tried to kill each other. MS-13, Mexican Mafia, another street gang, and somebody just that was affiliated with the gangs on the street. We did a collaboration, Homies for Christ, and we all came together. And, this is how God took everything that the devil took and manipulated and turned for bad. God said, all those were things that you needed to go through, and I allowed you to go through them, but not for his purpose, but for mine. So he brought me back, and now today the same, attitude, the same temperament, the same passion that I have for the streets, now I have 10 times over for Christ, Um,
It's such a beautiful, like I'm very moved by it because I've heard stories of people converting, getting out. I never understood how that would work. It always seemed like, what did they have to do to get out? But the way that you just explained your transition out and why you have the authority or the respect now going back in, to me, that is a total testimony of what the amazing things God has done in your life. And of course, with your ministry, with your book, with your company, Gangsters Gone Godly, with everything that you're doing, you're changing and impacting lives. All of the glory of Him, which is it's just an amazing thing. I would like to have, if it's all right with you, I'd like to have a part two of this,
oh, most definitely.
because I feel like there's so many questions that I could dive deeper in.
Hmm.
And I feel like the more that people understand, again, most of us have not experienced what you have experienced. And God obviously chose you for a very specific reason and to change um, very specific amount of lives. And I think that it's just amazing. You're calm when you speak. You're um, poised, and not that I didn't expect you to be poised, but when you speak about the pain, you take it to the positive level. You talk about how God came in and saved you and changed your life, and I just think there is a really amazing, more of an amazing message there.
Yeah.
Tell me as we wrap up, and I promise y'all, when you're watching, we, if Melvin will do it, I'd be honored to have him come on and do a part two and a part three if we need to, because I'm fascinated and moved. And I think that there are probably people out there who are watching who have either been in your situation, know people in your situation, and you can see what God does. God has the ability to change
Amen.
any circumstance, no matter what. All right, how can they find you? First of all, what's the best way for them to reach out, learn more about you, Melvin, and more about your ministry and what you do?
Well, you can, if you Google Gangsters Gone Godly, every possible link from LinkedIn to my website, which is scrolling across the bottom there. But Facebook, Gangsters Gone Godly, or my name, Melvin Negron. I also have Instagram, which would be G3TV _ Gangster Gone Godly. TikTok. Now, I'm not, the social media influencer. That's not my thing. I have a team that actually is on it, but I do stay on it. I do monitor. I actually reach out to people directly. I don't have automated text messages or anything like that. And even my phone number. My phone number is listed. It's not private. People can reach me. If you go onto the website, it's literally says 24 hours a day I'm available, because a lot of the stuff that I deal with happens at 3 o'clock in the morning. I
Right.
speak at schools, I speak at prisons, I speak, at different churches, events. Right now, I'm currently on tour. Doing a celebration of life tour that I created 5 years ago in honor of my brother. And I guess said in the beginning, I'm also in the process of filming a documentary, Holy Hip Hop House, um,
Wow.
life of a street ministry. Um, so
You're doing so much good in the world, Melvin. You
people
really
can
are.
find me anywhere. Let's put it that way.
Beautiful. And I'd be honored to have you back. Y'all reach out to Melvin. You can see his website scrolling across the bottom there. He's going to be continue to be a blessing to our audience. And he'll come back, thankfully. Melvin, seriously, God bless you. What a beautiful testimony.
Thank you.
I have so many questions for you. And now that I know you're willing to go deep,
Yes.
I will go deep with you on the next one. But I think God is shining right through you, my friend. And what a beautiful thing that you're doing for the world because of Him.
Well, I
So,
want to say thank you, Ted, for allowing me to be on here, and most definitely, I would more than more than happy to come on. Like I say, my life's an open book. So any questions, I have no problem speaking on it. And this is what I do. This is my life.
Love it. Well, I appreciate you. God bless you, my friend. Reach out to Melvin. You definitely want to get to know him. And if you know anyone who is in the throes of what he's been dealing with, please reach out to him. I love it. Gang life to God life. Thank you, Melvin. Thank you, Margie Santos. And stay tuned for part 2, y'all. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.